to talk about a very important branch. Now, it's not included necessarily in the upper limb arteries, but it is included in something called the arteries which supply the thorax, or the thorax proper, or the thoracic proper artery. Now, there's nothing called thoracic proper artery. In the interior of thorax, or the inside of thorax, there is a very important branch of subclavian artery, or the artery found below the clavicle. It gives a very important branch on the two sides to the thorax, which will supply all the important structures found in the chest cavity, such as mediastinum. Mediastinum is a very important hollow cavity which encloses the heart. Now, it will need the arterial supply for its maintenance and the thermostatic function for the regulation of temperature around the heart cavity. So we have the mediastinal branch. We also have a very important lymphatic organ, or let's say immunolymphatic organ, called thymus. Now, the thymus does degenerate or reduces its size as we grow older and older. It's the largest in children, so the thymic branch is very prominent and very important for immunology or immunological considerations of a child in pediatrics. And we have the sternum in the front. Sternum is the bone called breastbone, which does protect the anterior surface of the heart, as let's say the anterior anteroventricular surface, the ventricular surface in the front, and also little part of the left atrium. Also have the sternal branch to the sternum bone. We also have perforating branches. The perforating branches are smaller, relatively smaller, but however important branches, because they will supply something called the pericardium, the external layers of the heart, and also the smaller muscles found in between the cartilages. The fibrous cartilage do not need a extensive blood supply, but the perforating branches get important in case there is a direct trauma to the sternum or to any region of the thoracic part below the costal cartilages, so that they are considerable in the fact that they might rupture and cause something called an aneurysm, a balloon-shaped structure or outgrowth, which will definitely be responsible for the irregularities in the vascular or blood pressure in the thoracic region, vascular abnormalities for that matter. The pericardial or phrenic branches, or we must say the pericardiophrenic branches, because that would not just supply the pericardium but also the diaphragm. Diaphragm is pretty important because that's a very big and round muscle which helps us in respiration. Now, the diaphragmatic respiration is not always considerable when we talk about pregnant women, but apart from that, it's very important in every individual. Between the ribs and in the anterior, or let's say in the front of the ribs, there are small branches, little branches, which are called anterior intercostal branches, or let's say the branches in the front between the costa, between the ribs. We also should consider the fact that the diaphragm is not only supplied by the pericardial phrenic branch or the pericardiophrenic artery, but it also has something called a central tendon. Now, central tendon is quite muscular, and it would require something called a musculophrenic branch. Now, the musculophrenic branch is a fancy name, quite fancy name, because it is not only requiring one major arterial supply, but it's requiring two major arterial supply coming off of internal thoracic artery branched off of subclavian artery. It's quite funny because from the both sides, the central tendon will require the musculophrenic branch from the both sides of the thorax, both lateral sides, and converging into one. The last quite important part of the internal thoracic artery, or the artery which supplies all the structures found in the thorax or in the chest cavity region, is superior epigastric branch, and it supplies the cardiac part of the stomach and all the structures found above the cavity, stomach cavity, or the abdominal cavity, the upper part of peritoneum, all the fat structures, upper mesentery is supplied by that.